So we've made it to the second to last video, which is my take on assessments and how I am going to incorporate assessments into my pedagogical promise. Because as I've said in my last post, there's no way around assessments. You can't live with them, you can't live without them. And as an educator, to be blind to the importance of assessment in, the way education has been structured today would be doing a disservice to my students, because to not create purposefully planned assessments on a daily and consistent basis would really be doing them a disservice. And I think that actually to take a disability studies approach on education, specifically in the context of special education, there should be more assessments. And we should, and I should, be presuming great competence of my students and their ability to perform on, assessments and standardized and formal assessments, and to kind of disenfranchise them from the opportunity to show their performance in learning and in knowledge is really an injustice, I think. And so actually, as a special educator, I hope to revolve most of my education and most of my planning on assessment. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be, fill in the blanks all the time. But actually, I can just show you something that we did in this course was our, universally designed unit plan. And my group, and I'm sure you can't see very well, I can try to post some of these on the blog, we have a Glogster here, and here was the model. We did a Glogster assessment on how all about me. So students had to kind of create a little me board, little me Glogster with all different images, and here's my model. Additionally, we wrote 6-word memoirs. This one is I Just Pretend to Be Happy. It was an example of some type of student work from one of our other team members. We used exit surveys from Google Docs, and we also used different graphic organizers. Here's a graphic organizer actually that I used in a previous class on interrogating stereotypes, and students had to fill those out and then worked as a group on some sentence stems. And so basically what I'm trying to show myself, in the future, is that if I ever think that it's difficult to assess my students, that I really am thinking about it in a very narrow way, and that actually assessment can be broadly redefined as just ways in which that we observe and synthesize information, and the ways in which that we can measure students' command over certain knowledges and skills and concepts. And I think that in that sense, assessment is incredibly important. And I think assessment for a while has gotten a bad rap. It started to look like this and gives us anxiety because, I didn't put my name exactly on the line, or I didn't fill out the right bubbles, or I filled out too many bubbles on one line. And in that way, assessment has become very negative and has had a negative connotation. So as an educator, I promise to try to demystify, if that's a word, to break down, and kind of debrief and unload with students exactly what assessments are. And as I said in previous posts, to empower their test taker selves and to kind of put on our test taking suits. This is something I did with students in Nepal. And also up in Westchester in the residential treatment facilities, we put on test taker suits. And even 18-year-old boys would take off and take on their test taker suits. And it was not only a way of feeling greater command and being empowered and feeling, greater confidence, but also, on the other hand, it was a way of just unloading that burden and taking the testing off your shoulders and saying, I'm more than just a test taker. I'm more than just what my standardized grade says. And I think that that is so powerful. And as an educator, I promise to, strive for that type of power and empowerment of my students. I think in terms of assessment, it's all about reframing and refocusing and redefining. There's a lot of re's there, but I do believe that I think that, looking at my future self, I want her to remember what I believed about these things, and I want her to remember that future me, that assessments are important, that they can be utilized in a purposeful way, and that they should be, that they should align with our objectives, and that they should be consistent and almost done on a daily basis, and that students should be aware that they should always be working towards their best and striving, and allowing students the opportunities to be their best and to create accommodations and modifications when we realize that it's not the assessment necessarily or the objective, but really just the modality that's holding students back. And I think there comes the refocusing and the reframing, and the redefining comes in the form of taking your mind off of assessments as a bubble sheet and turning into just ways in which to show that information has been ingested, really, and understood. And so, kind of to go around the mulberry bush and to speak a bit in circles, I'd like for my students to understand and distinguish and have a distinction between who they are and what a test might say. And even if it's formative, summative, formal, informal, standardized, or not, I want students to know that what a number or what a grade or what a comment says, doesn't have to follow them and doesn't truly, define their self-worth and self-image. And so I think to couple my curriculum and my content assessments with truly authentic, engaging activities that empower self-worth, self-image, self-esteem, positive self-images and self-esteem is so imperative. And so if I'm going to promise as an educator to incorporate and revolve my education around assessments and assessing myself and my students, I need to also simultaneously promise to incorporate building on self-esteem and confidence and creating positive self-images and empowering those self-images as well. A lot of the times we get caught, and myself too, I'm hoping that, oh my goodness, I talked for so many videos and other people are writing 10-page papers, I'm probably going to get a C. I made a movie and I'm probably going to get a C. Like, I'm still thinking of that. And so, as much as I can make promises, I also do need to be aware of my own limitations. And so that's why I say that it's really imperative for me to make that promise now. And so from the get-go, I can, for myself and for my students, redefine, what self-representation, self-image, and self-worth really are, and how we've been conditioned to think of them in a different way, and how if society can give us one version, we are just as capable of giving them another. So on that note, I probably didn't give that most concise of an answer, but if I had the perfect answer, I wouldn't be in this class. But I do know why I'm in this class, and that's because I want to be a good teacher. And so, yeah, that's how I think I can.